Welcome to the February 13th, 2024, 6:30 p.m. City Council meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? And the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America. Clerk, would you please read the rules to speak?
Yes, sir. Individuals wishing to speak on agenda items must complete a sign-up card prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions and requests from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on all items. Citizens wishing to speak on the consent agenda must submit a sign-up card identifying the items of interest. Each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes to speak on the entire consent agenda. All sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to City Council shall be placed in the box on the table.
Thank you very much. Can I get approval of the minutes, or a motion to approve the minutes from the meetings of January 9th, 2024, January 23rd, 2024, 5:30 and 6:30, and special meeting on January 11th, 2024?
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second. All those in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Minutes are approved. City Manager.
On to boards and commission. You're on item 6A, which is the Titusville Environmental Commission. And this is the action to appoint one alternate member to the Titusville Environmental Commission with an unexpired term to expire on 30 November 2026. Ms. Megan Macoso is presently a regular member on the Planning and Zoning Commission. She desires to also serve as a Titusville Environmental Commission. Her application is provided to council on the agenda. If not appointed as an alternate member on the TEC, member Macoso will serve as, if appointed as a member as an alternate member on the TEC, Ms. Macoso will serve as a dual member of the P&Z and TEZ. In addition, there are two applications on file, Mr. Robert Johnston and Joshua Koki.
All right, Council, anything you want to add? Staff, okay. Council, anything you want to add on that?
Well,
Member Nelson.
let me just say, I did get a text from Megan. Her whole family is sick.
Mm-hmm.
She offered to come in and share her germs. I thought that it would be prudent if we declined.
Yeah, she texted me the same, that she wouldn't be here. Is the other applicant here? No? No.
Joshua?
Okay, I see none. So anybody have a direction they want to go before I tell you what I'm thinking? Vice
Well-
Mayor?
Yes, and reading through them, I think my thoughts is it'd be wonderful to have someone, continue to have someone on the, on both boards with the League of Cities and, not the League of Cities, P&Z.
MTZ. I know what you're, we were just there.
P&Z, and, but more importantly, the educational background of the gentleman that is an environmental, that will be a great asset to have on that board. But you got two different, but that's my thoughts, is that if I wanted to hear him speak before us tonight.
Yeah.
And tell us about, I was looking at his volunteer experience, and he has some things that he's done, but again, to have someone with that environmental expertise will be an added plus to the TEC.
Thank you. Member Nelson?
I agree with the vice mayor. Megan has offered to sit in on the TEC meetings, even though she's not appointed, and sort of act as a go-between. And I have to remind us, we changed the ordinance to say that we give preference to people who had scientific-type backgrounds. And Mr. Kochi, I hope I'm pronouncing that right,
Yeah, how are you saying
does
it?
that bill, so I would like to see him on the TEC.
It is hard to not notice Mr.
Kochi?
Kochi's qualifications, environmental engineer. I don't know if we've ever gone that far with it, but
We've had one other.
I had a little communication with Megan as well, and I think that she is very understanding and simply wants to help.
Yeah.
That's who Megan's all about. Ms. Sokol.
Yep, I was just going to echo on Megan. I feel like I appreciate her passion and her hard work since she's joined P&Z, and I've seen her go the extra mile with meetings, attending a training that I was at, so I know that she will put 100% into it. I still do like the idea of having somebody serving on both boards, because my only thing with Josh, I will say I really do like the environmental aspect, because I feel like that will help the board moving forward. And as we always mention, they're advisory boards, and I always look to having diverse backgrounds on those boards to help me make better decisions up here. My concern would be that we won't have somebody that's serving on both boards, and so we would forego that position. So I'm okay either way. I do feel like if we go with Josh and a position does open up on TEC again, I would want Megan to be on there, because then we would have that dual position. So that's kind of my thoughts.
Okay.
Mayor, we have cards.
Okay, I'm going to just see one more. Member Nelson?
Oh, I thought you might want a motion.
No, I want to go ahead. Call the cards, please.
Morley Thompson.
Lori Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, Mims, Florida, and I'm the chair of your Environmental Commission. And I fully support the appointment of Josh. We desperately need somebody with his kind of background on that board. Ever since Woody Rice left the board, we have lost that ability to have somebody on the board that knows environmental engineering. It's a huge gap. It's also an alternate position that has been vacant for about, I would say, at least 6 months or more. So we would be really happy to have Josh on that board. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card.
Stan Johnston.
You're up.
You gotta receive your cards. Stan Johnston. I believe I'm also a candidate for this. Am I correct?
Your name is down there.
Okay, I'm a candidate for this. So I want to bring your attention to something I brought up to you at the last meeting. I'll read it to you again. And I'm a professional engineer, you know that, and so forth. And I've worked with the city, I was employed by the city. So the question that the TEC had a motion that went to council, and then the council never got it. And I'll read it to you again. This is it's a little bit rewording of it. It says, is anyone in city council going to acknowledge the sewage spill, September through November 2022, coming out of manholes ponding in Greenwood Street and into 9 city streets, as witnessed by me and Laura Lee Thompson, that's the person who just spoke, the person who turned off the alarm and red flashing light at the lift station, photos, videotape of sewage flowing out of manholes, many witnesses and photographed on the front page of the Florida Today.
I certainly hope that TEC will get something through to you guys, regardless of what your city manager wants. And I would like to notify you that, remind me, please be reminded of what I told you about what the city attorney said. He said everything's going to be fine when we did the P&Z. It's not fine. We do not have yet someone who is on P&Z and TEC that we're pledged to do. Mr. Broom messed up, and you didn't listen to what I said. You didn't listen to what Sarah Stokel said. She also brought that to your attention. Now we're in this predicament because you messed up. Mr. Broom messed up. I brought it to your attention. Dr. Stokel did also. It's your fault. We shouldn't be in this situation. We should also have that question answered that came from TEC about why in the world do you deny a sewage spill that so many people witnessed, including me, Laura Lee Thompson, and a whole bunch of other people, even people on Carroll Avenue where your son Travis lives. Is anyone listening? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's your problem, and you need to deal with it. I would like you to tell the truth. Thank you. Bye.
Not for a rebuttal, but Kevin, can you confirm that that was looked into and investigated? It's not like we just said, never mind.
Yeah, PhilDOPS looked into it during the hurricane and reported it back to DEP. Also, Mr. Johnson turned it into DEP after the hurricane, I believe twice. They've both been investigated, turned back into DEP with no findings. So we met with DEP with regard to that same hurricane on a different spill reporting, and there's not been raised a second issue on it.
All right, thank you. Other cards?
No, sir.
All right, with that. Member Nelson.
Can I make
Yeah, go ahead, Member Nelson.
Can I make a motion to appoint Joshua Kochi as an alternate member to the Titusville Environmental Commission with an unexpired term to expire on November 30th, 2026?
Second.
I have a motion, Member Nelson, a second, Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Accepted unanimously. Thank you very much. City Manager.
On to item 6B, which is the Titusville Environmental Commission semi-annual report, which is July through December 2023. And the chairman, Ms. Laura Lee Thompson, is here to present.
Hi, I'm Laura Lee Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, Mims, Florida, and I am the chair of your Environmental Commission. So you have it in your packet. It's pretty dry, but actually, there was a lot of discussion. There always is. At the TEC meetings, there's always a lot of discussion about the things that come to us, from staff, or things that we dream up on our own regarding the environment here in Titusville. So we spent a lot of time on the tree technical manual, and we're still spending time on it. And I really appreciate, I want to thank you guys for your last meeting for postponing approval of the tree list. Titusville is such a special area. When you go down to the south end of the county, the growth is out of control. They're tearing down everything they can and building. And up here, we're surrounded by conservation land. We have the Merritt Island Wildlife Refuge and the Space Center on the east, and hundreds of acres. There's 100 square miles of designated wilderness between Highway 50 and Highway 46 on the west side of town. We are special. And so your Environmental Commission is very special. This tree list is very, very special because when the developments come, they take down, and I understand, the whole grading and all of the scale of all of the drainage and all that. I understand that they have to take out some trees to do that. But when they take out native trees, they should be replaced by native trees. And that's why this list is so important, because, if we don't, we have really unique animals here, and birds especially, species. And they're here because we still have habitat. Titusville still has pockets of habitat that remain inside the city limits. And so the tree list it's designed, it is designed to replace the trees that are being taken out with comparable native or Florida-friendly species that attract birds, bees, and wildlife, so that we can try to replicate some of the habitat that we're losing, so that we won't lose these very special species that we have here. We spent a lot of time on the urban forestry program. Thanks again to you guys. You adopted the TEC's plan, which includes tree education, tree plantings, and new staff, which are not budgeted, but we're going to get around that somehow, because there are a lot of people in Titusville that really want to help. They want to volunteer. Jolynn was telling me today that the Rotary Club is funding 50 additional trees to be planted at Sandpoint Park, and that's all going to be done by volunteers. Not going to cost the city a dime. Additional topics that we discussed, the BMPs and the reductions in total nitrogen and total phosphorus on the 2022 update. We have discussed numerous times the Hurricane Ian, Baker subdivision sewer spill. I did see sewage coming out of a manhole. I saw it. Stan keeps saying that. I saw it. But, that's water under the bridge. It would be nice if the city actually admitted that the sewer spill did happen. Wouldn't hurt you, wouldn't cost you anything. Just say it happened. City performance measures, the tree mitigation fund, that's another big one, because the developers that are taking out these trees are paying money into a tree mitigation fund, and we would like to see that fund to be used to plant trees to replace the ones that are coming out. And another big one, thank you very much. Our TEC meetings are going to be televised, alternating with the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. Our last meeting was televised, and I think that the council did a pretty good job. The next one tomorrow night will not be televised, but the one following is scheduled to be televised, and that's when the consultant is coming back from Kimley Horn to talk about the tree list for the technical manual. So that'll be an interesting one. So unless you have any questions, I'm done. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your support.
Can I just say this? I actually watched the discussion on the trees with a consultant. It was very enlightening. Very long. I think it was an hour and a half, 2 hours, but it was really interesting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura Lee. Next card?
There's
We don't
no
have a
action
card on that,
required.
do we? Do we have any vote? Okay, no action required. My bad. City Manager.
On to item 6C, which is Board of Adjustment Appeals. The Board of Adjustment Appeals semi-annual report is provided for council in the agenda packet as written. No action is required.
Thank you very much. Petitions and requests from the public.
Tony Schifolo, 715 Tropic Street. At least it isn't Kimley Horn. Buried deep in the consent agenda at the November 28th council meeting was the proposal to accept a limited but scientifically statistical survey of citizens to measure the effectiveness of our local government. Nowhere in the detailed agenda packet was it stated that this survey would replace the annual budget workshop attended by interested and the vested public. The only clue was a vague paragraph stating, the city previously engaged this survey company in 2005 and again in 2007, enabling a more comprehensive understanding of the community, surpassing what can be achieved through a weekend workshop. or standard board meetings, I speak for many citizens who are dismayed and disappointed that we will not have the opportunity to meet with the city and staff in a consultant-moderated workshop to express our opinions of how local government is operating, whether effectively or not. As ineffective as those workshops were, being that what came out was what was put in the first place, given year after year, I know I attended, at least the citizen participated. The citizen participants, that's hard to say, sorry, we appreciated the opportunity, actually, to voice our concerns, even while we were frustrated by the repetitious goals and objectives brought forth year after year. So I'm sorry to miss that opportunity to have that workshop that we had annually in February. I don't know how I missed that it wasn't going to happen. I had to dig back into the minutes to find out. Sorry.
Member Stokel.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that. So just so you're aware, once we get the survey results back, we will still have a session where we will have a facilitator go through those results where the public can participate and be a part and voice their opinions. So we're increasing how much feedback we will actually have, and we will still have that discussion. So just know that that is coming.
Are you referring, may I ask, are you referring to the, those 3 meeting dates that are in the city manager's report at the end of the agenda packet?
And I think it will be, once we get the survey results back, we will still have a facilitator come and go over those results with us. So we will still have a space and time for that.
Next up.
Stan Johnston. Mr. Diesel, thank you for bringing a report from professional engineer over here, Mr. Cook. I want you to notice that one thing Mr. Cook did not mention is that he didn't say, he never said that we didn't have a sewage spill. He reported what they had reported. And I want you to understand, as I have told Mr. Cook, is that if he said there was not a sewage spill, is that I would report it to the board. And I'll report any PE that puts it in writing or public statement that is reported to the board. Because the board has told me, said they're not going to, that's the only way they'll let me make it a complaint against your professional engineers. So I want the public to understand is that there's a dirty trick that our council is playing and our city manager. The dirty trick is this, is we have professional engineers. We have numerous professional engineers, and we have a registered surveyor. When I put these problems toward you, is that you will not have them respond. Your PEs, Mr. Cook, and your other professional engineers will not respond. So although you hired them, you will not let them respond because the truth is that sewage spill happened. The truth is that S&J Oaks has a fake survey. That's for your surveyor. So what you're doing is you're playing a dirty game. It's bad. It's really bad. So in other words, the city of Titusville has professional engineers and a surveyor that they will not use to answer questions. Because if they're lying or if they're wrong, they'll be reported. So when you make a report, it's signed by somebody like Mr. Diesel, our city manager, or somebody else. So it's a dirty trick that not only you, but other agencies use. They hire PEs because they're required to, but they do not use them. Because, why? Because the PEs can't do it, because they'll lose their license. So what you're playing is you're playing a dirty game. You're doing a disservice to the public. And by the way, that sewage spill continued because we had another hurricane come up following that, like Hurricane Nicole. And the sewage spilled out. And not only that is we had a puddle of sewage over top of a water main leak that was witnessed by Dr. Joyce Smolnick. And she can witness to that too. That sewage leak was there right at her on intersection of Sherry and Beatrice. So that was repaired, so was the sunken manhole in Greenwood repaired. We've got all these witnesses that were worked on these projects. In other words, we're talking about witnesses that were city employees. City employee witnesses to this fact.
Thanks, Dan.
No, you're not welcome.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Next, petitions request? That'd be you. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name, excuse me. My name is Michael Taylor. I live in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Some people might not agree with what I'm about to talk about, but just take in regards your First Amendment right. If we all appreciate the First Amendment, you should appreciate the Second Amendment. I came to not Titusville in June of about 4 years ago. I met Chief Lau, Lieutenant Little, Sergeant Anderson. I've got Chief Lau, Lieutenant Little, and Sergeant Anderson that violated state law under 790.33 of the Florida statute. That's our preemption law. It's a $5,000 fine to tell me that I cannot carry my firearm in a public park if I'm openly carrying while fishing, hunting, and camping. And that was exactly what is told to me on video by the chief. I then, in turn, gave him an intent to sue. From that intent to sue, I was going to sue them, and when I received something back from the Parks and Recreation manager is Bob Davis, or was Bob Davis, I'm not sure if he still is, but anyway, I had a recorded conversation with him. I posted that video, and then Lieutenant Little was watching my YouTube channel and then put out a warrant, a felony warrant on me for recording a public official in the course of their duty. Whatever, I get arrested. In less than a month, I don't even go to an arraignment, and they dismiss my charges of this felony wiretapping. And for most people, if you don't know, if you get arrested for a felony in the state of Florida, your DNA goes to the FBI forever. That is exactly what happened to me, because I have a chief that didn't respect my rights. I have Lieutenant Little that didn't respect my rights, and they put a felony on me. Those all get dismissed. And then I come back to Titusville, and I think there's a park right down yonder way here, just before Max Brewer Park. And then I get to meet Sergeant Anderson again. And he comes to me, and they want my ID, they want this, and the third. I have a Second Amendment right here in the state of Florida to carry my guns openly while fishing, hunting, and camping. Not one of those officers respected my right, and when I tried to hold them accountable, they put me under a FBI DNA registry. I don't agree with it, and I wish John Lau was here today, but thank you, and thank you. Hopefully you don't disrespect the homeless.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. I got 2 hours to go home.
Next up. City Manager.
Okay, on to consent agenda items A through H. City Council, do you have any questions of staff for consent agenda items A through H? City Council, would you like to pull any items for further discussion for consent A through H?
No, I see none, sir.
City Clerk, are there any cards for consent? And Mayor, I'd like to read the titles for the record.
Thank you.
Consent agenda item 8A, approve the award of proposal of the project Joinerville and Beyond, memorializing and celebrating Titusville's African-American history. Consent agenda item 8B, approve the city's critical classification hiring monetary bonus program. Consent agenda item 8C, approve the boating infrastructure grant program. Consent agenda item 8D, appropriate and approve the forfeiture funds for vehicle maintenance, crime prevention, and patrol shields. Consent agenda item 8E, authorize the Flag and Memorial Committee to use funds. Consent agenda item 8F, Approve Amendment 1, Work Order Number 18 to the Armstrong pH Adjustment Project. Consent Agenda Item 8G. Approve Amendment 1 to the DEP Grant Agreement, Mike November 039 for the City of Titusville Stormwater Improvement Projects. Consent Agenda Item 8H. Approve the purchase of vehicles for Public Works.
Thank you very much. Council, anything you want to add? Questions? Call the cards, please.
Tony Schifolo for item A.
Tony Schifolo, the historic Norwood House. I want to thank you in advance for accepting and executing the grant to research, recover, and acknowledge this historic center of Titusville's African-American heritage, Joinerville and beyond, especially before the area gets flooded in the tsunami of development as Kimley Horn and the state legislature get control of infill in this area west of the tracks. Now, we hope these consultants live up to their proposal to aid us as we achieve another wonderful project by your Historic Preservation Board. I want to thank you in advance for your support of historic efforts to save Titusville's story on behalf of citizens of Titusville and owners of historic properties. Thank you.
Tony, thank you for commenting on that one. I was going to as well, but I'd see if somebody else wanted to. I'd like to learn more about that. That's the best I can say about it. I just want to learn more about that. I'm very honored that I was so pleased to see that. Thank you. Next card.
Stan Johnston for items A, B, and F.
A, D, and F.
Okay. Item 8A, that was what, Stan Johnston, you know.
Oh, okay, same one.
Same guy. 8A, on 8A is, Tony gave a nice
Right.
description of this, and I'm approving of that also. It's a nice thing that we're doing there.
Very important.
But on item 8B, 8F, and 8G, 8B, I'm concerned because I don't know that we should be doing this. So staff recommends approval of city's policy providing for a hiring bonus. I'm not sure this is right because I'm having trouble with human resources. Joe's right here right now. I've sent Joe a number of complaints that I have had on employees, and there's nothing being happening. These are serious complaints. Nothing's happening. So how in the world can we have human resources doing all this other stuff and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as, I don't see that Mr. De Niro is doing what he's supposed to be doing as far as complaints. I've got serious complaints. Big time. Nothing's happening. So it just sounds similar to what's happening with the sewage spills. We have sewage spills, DOT right away and so forth like that. And the fact is that item 8G has to do with stormwater. You know what? The sewage is going into our stormwater. We're supposed to report when it goes into FDOT. We're not doing it. I'm sending information to FDOT and said, hey, you know, the sewage is going into our stormwater. And you can go ahead and deny it, but if I can get FDOT here, they can confirm these sewage spills. That's what maybe I'll do. Maybe if they probably won't come after the fact, but we've got all kinds of witnesses. In fact, we got witnesses as to the sewage spill after December the 9th that you guys denied. Millions of gallons going into the river and into our storm sewage. So if you can't be honest about these simple matters of sewage going into our stormwater, why in the world are we having all these money spent on stormwater and you're not even obeying the laws on stormwater? You're not doing it. I've got witnesses. I got police officers that saw it too. Police. We've got numerous city employees that saw the sewage, including Jim Thomas. And you know what I did? I even called up your city attorney. I said, hey, why don't you come with me, Chris, and I'll show you the sewage is going into the river. Oh, I don't have time. Same thing with you guys. I notified you guys. I put red notices on your church and 12 other churches, including your church and your church.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Any,
No, you're doing a good job, Dan. You are doing a good job, Bill.
I'll do my best. Any other? No, sir. Okay. Member Nelson?
Move to approve consent agenda items A through H.
Got a motion?
Second.
I got a motion from Member Nelson, a second from Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Nelson? Yes. Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Consent agenda passes unanimously. City Manager.
On to item 9A, which is ordinance number 50, 2023, wireless and public rights-of-way. The city attorney will read the ordinance for the record.
Ordinance number 50, 2023, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances to implement the Advanced Wireless Infrastructure Deployment Act, adopting regulations related to placement, maintenance, and replacement of wireless and other communications facilities in the public rights-of-way, providing registration and permitting procedures, insurance and bonding requirements, objective design standards, waivers, safety, and enforcement provisions by amending Chapter 17 streets, sidewalks, and certain other public places, Section 1783 registration, and by creating Article 5 wireless communication facilities right-of-way regulations, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, incorporation into the code, and an effective date.
On 14 November 2023, this item was tabled to the regular city council meeting on 12 December 2023. On 12 December 2023, this item was tabled again to the regular meeting on 9 January 2024, and again to the regular city council meeting on February 13th, 2024, with new advertising. Mr. Glendo is here to answer any questions you may have on this, your public hearing on ordinance number 50, 2023.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I know we've sent it back a couple of times, Brad, and had it going. You got all of the partners and all of the people that will be influenced. Everybody is now in agreement with how we want to move forward on that. I know the telephone company or something was involved.
This was a complicated ordinance. It took several years and iterations to go through. In fact, I think we're on version 30. And we had several conversations with interested parties, telecommunication companies. We believe we've satisfied all of their questions and concerns, consistent with the original law that was adopted in 2017, and then it was amended again in 2019, which complicated this even further. Since then, we've only received one additional comment, and that was from another utility. I think it was yesterday, Spectrum. We reviewed what they questioned, and we believe that the ordinance is ready for approval.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Call the cards, please.
One card, Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnston. I'm a registered professional engineer, and also I've been a registered surveyor for over 26 years. I'm not registered, I'm an inactive surveyor at this time, but what I do is I put in iron rods as a surveyor. They're 18 inches long. I put them in frequently at 3 inches below the ground surface. That's 21 inches. Now, I've brought this up to you guys before about statutes that have to do with the depth and cover. And this is what I'm concerned about, is that if you don't have at least 21 inches in your code, and then is that we're going to have surveyors penetrating your wireless connections, your those wires that are glass. I can't remember what they're called right now. Fiber optics, right. Now, boy, and that is bad. When you penetrate a fiber optic, it's a sad time. And I've been there when it's happened. Thousands of dollars. Well, more like sometimes even over $20,000. So I'm asking you to take notice of it. If nobody else has taken notice of it, is have respect for some surveyors and what they do, because we'll just drive our rods right down through there, and who's going to be responsible? I want you guys to be responsible. Okay? So on this particular thing, I want you to be responsible and take care of what I just shared with you, Because if you don't, and it happens, I want you guys to be sued, not the surveyors. Thank you.
Good input to that last part, but anyway, good input. Any other? No, sir. Member Stokel?
Yep, I just had one question. I appreciate that we took the time on this and tabled it. I know it was a little frustrating, but I'd rather get it right. I did want to know with Spectrum's comment, because I didn't receive that email, they didn't send out anything to me personally that they had issues with it. If you could just give a brief summary of what they were concerned about?
Has to do with definitions.
Okay.
Basically, a lot of the definitions you'll see in this ordinance are carried over from the statutes, and we've adopted them here. They had questions as to whether we appropriately put in a definition related to the wireless facility itself, and there's sub-definitions related to it. We looked at that. We didn't think there was really an issue here.
Okay.
The statute's going to preempt anything conflict anyway. So if we get a request for one of these, and as it turns out that there is a conflict, that statute's going to override.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I'm good.
All right, I see nothing else. We get a motion? Member Nelson?
Move to approve ordinance number 50, 2023, wireless in public right-of-way.
I have a motion. Need a second?
Second,
Got a second from Member Stokel. Roll call vote?
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
yes.
Member Cole? Yes. Member Nelson?
Passes unanimously. City Manager?
On to item 9B, which is ordinance number 5, 2024, civic conditional use permits. The city attorney will read for the record.
Ordinance number 5, 2024, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by reclassifying recreation and commercial amusement indoor from a conditional use to a limited use in the community commercial CC, regional commercial RC, regional mixed use RMU 300, and urban village UV zoning districts by amending sections 28-54 use table, 28-275 recreation and commercial amusement indoor, and 37-1 definitions, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, incorporation into the code, and an effective date.
On May 10th, 2022, the City Council directed staff to evaluate existing conditional uses within the code and provide recommendations on those which are overly restrictive, outdated, or which should be reclassified as limited or permitted uses. Staff recommends certain changes to the current code in order to enhance the usability of the code while protecting property rights. On January 16th, 2024, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the civic conditional use permits ordinance as presented. A correction to the hours of operations was made to section 28-275C1B, and the recommended language approved by the Planning and Zoning Commissions be attached to your agenda, and it is. And Christie is here to answer any questions that you may have on this ordinance number 5, 2024.
Vice Mayor. Yes, I kind of like this because it gives us an opportunity to repurpose some buildings and some industrial building at one time and go and do things. And it keeps, that's all of these idle places from sitting there. And because it's a conditional use, that doesn't permanently change anything. Am I not correct?
That's correct. It's making it a little bit easier to have these types of uses as to where requiring you to go through a conditional use permit, we can implement limitations. As long as you're abiding by those limitations, then a conditional use permit would not be required. So it would make it easier to have those types of uses. And I believe that this is the last and final section that we're updating. I think you previously approved the commercial and industrial uses, and then this is pertaining to the civic uses. So this is the final update that staff has done to kind of clarify and make things a little bit easier for those types of uses.
Thank you.
Member Stokel?
Yep, and to Vice Mayor's point, this was kind of started, I think, before you got on council. We were having citizens come before us for conditional use permits, and I think at council's direction at that time, we were like, does this really need to come before us? And so staff's been going through this gradually as a process. And so for this one, some of those conditional use permits areas are now being switched over to limited use, so they won't necessarily come. So it's making it easier for applicants to be able to do what they need to do, which I think I'm happy about it. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do it. And you guys put in there limitations that we would probably put in there anyway if it came before us for a conditional use permit. So I'm in favor of it, and I appreciate the work that you guys did on it.
Yeah, I recall that we were trying to simply make it easier on applicants, expedite the process a little quicker, and simply, get rid of some of the confusion and have it keep coming to council. I agree. Member Nelson?
So it says the recommended language approved by planning and zoning is attached, and I didn't see an attachment.
So on page 300 of your packet, there was a sheet provided showing the language that was approved by the planning and zoning.
Have we put that in? Has that been included?
No, so there was a correction after the planning and zoning meeting. It was to the hours of operations, just to make it a little bit clearer and more defined, was the reason for that change.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else from council? Staff, anyone add?
No, sir.
Okay, call the cards.
1 card, Stan Johnston.
Stan, you're fine. Solo.
I pass.
Thank you, sir. Member Nelson?
Move to approve ordinance number 5-2024, civic conditional use permits.
Second.
Motion from Member Nelson, second from Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole? Yes. Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes, passes unanimously. City Manager?
Mayor, staff would like a clarification on the motion, whether it was to include the plan and zonings. Let Brad ask.
Did your motion include the P and Z's recommendation that's described here on page 300?
Yeah, I have a question about that, actually.
So that language was suggested by legal, just to clarify.
Clarify,
So it
but-
was not, yeah.
So the language on page 300 was generally from P and Z, but there was a clarification from staff and from legal. And so the version you see on page 300 is the version that we're proposing from P and Z. So did your motion include that version?
Wait, can I ask about that?
Member Stokel?
Sorry, that's a duplicate of page 297, correct? Except for the hours. So is the 297 the original and 300 is the P and Z one?
With our correction.
And it's just the hours, the highlighted?
Not a lot of difference.
Which one?
Yeah,
We
that-
need to make clear. Which one.
297.
So 290, go ahead, Christine.
Page 297, that is the proposed language for this evening. So page 300, what was presented to P and Z. After the P and
Okay,
Z
thank
meeting,
you.
staff realized that the hours of operation need to be clarified a
Thank-
little
that
bit
was my
better.
question.
So that's what is presented this evening.
So
is the-
297 is the correct one, right?
That is
Because I thought
correct.
300 was a little confusing with those hours as well. Okay, yes.
Like page 300 is very similar.
Yes, that was just to give you an example, what P and Z saw.
Gotcha.
Okay, we got it. So I would say the ordinance.
Your light on, make sure your light's on.
Oh, hit your button, I'm sorry.
Sorry, the ordinance as presented tonight by staff.
Yep, with those recommendations.
Okay.
I think we all agree.
City Manager?
On to 9C, which is the Comprehensive Plan Amendment Number 1-2024, transmittal of the draft comprehensive plan amendment to amend the future land use, transportation, and housing elements, and adopt a citywide goals and objectives and policies. On April 27th, 2022, the council directed that staff propose a strategy where certain portions of the draft 2040 Titusville Tomorrow Comprehensive Plan may be incorporated into and adopted the comprehensive plan. Staff recommended adopting 4 separate amendments, which include mobility, transportation, housing, historic preservation, and land use and environmental. On 8 August 2023, council directed the staff to obtain public input on the draft comprehensive plan amendments and the proposed changes to the land development regulations. 3 public meetings were held on September 18th, September 28th, and October 5th. More than 100 members of the public participated. On October 24th, 2023, staff presented to council a summary of the public input. On November 28th, 2023, the council directed staff to schedule the comprehensive plan amendment transmittal hearings, and that's what we're doing right now. Mr. Parrish is here to answer any questions that you may have, and as a reminder, this is transmitting to the state. The state will return with comments or not, and then you'll have 2 public hearings after that.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one clarification. This does not include the full package. If you remember, there were 3 major themes: downtown, gateways, commercial quarters, and the area, neighborhood immediately to the west of downtown. That portion is not included in your amendment. So all you have here tonight are the 2 of the 3 themes: downtown and the gateway quarters, and any policies related to those. So that includes amendments to the future land use element, transportation element, and the housing element. The reason why we didn't include the 3rd theme for the neighborhood immediately to the west, which has been known as Canaveral Heights or Titusville West, is because it included a map amendment that complicated things, and we'll process that as a separate amendment and bring that before you. We believe we're going to need to have a couple, maybe another community meeting just about that particular portion of this amendment as well. If you agree to transmit the amendments that are before you tonight, as the city manager said, they'll go to the state. We'll get them back again with any comments or objections. We'll have to address them, and then you'll have another shot at this again to adopt them. In the meantime, the staff will continue working on any changes to the land development regulations. And so when this all comes back to you, it'll come back to you as one package. So you see everything together. Just to remind you, the main crux of this is about creating incentives for redevelopment along our commercial quarters and our downtown. In the downtown, it has that new policy related to how we'll calculate density. I won't go over it again. I'll try and answer any questions you have about it. The gateway quarters does not include that new calculation, but it does include an increase of density up to about 40 units per acre, provided all the incentives are adhered to, which will then be spelled out in more detail in the code.
And the Planning and Zoning Commission did hear this on February 7th and recommended approval 5-1. A member did not support the motion of his concerns with an apparent conflict of interest with Kimberly Horn as both the city's consultant as the applicant for the small scale amendment and the land use amendment. And their comments that were produced during that meeting are in your packet as well.
As far as Kimberly Horn's involvement in this, that project is complete. This is in our hands now. We can certainly use them again if we need to, or use someone else to help us with any future projects related to this. With that, I'll answer any questions you have about this amendment.
Member Nelson.
So just making sure I got it right. The building height, P&Z recommended that we define them, and our thoughts are those will be defined in the code.
Right. I made the point that it's probably a better idea to keep regulations in the code and more policy language in the comprehensive plan. So when you start stating things like this is the maximum height where you can build on site X and put it in the comp plan, it's usually not a good idea to put it there. Because if there's any need to deviate from a particular regulation, you can't do it because it has to be consistent with that comp plan.
Okay.
So the consultant suggested up to 5 stories with the density and all the other incentives, and this is related to gateway quarters.
Okay.
And then any specifics as far as how that is defined and stipulated as far as maximum feet would be put in the code.
How does staff feel about changing it to encourage Florida-friendly plants?
You're referring to the policy 1.5.8 of the future land use element. It's the new policy that these consultants suggesting. Let's see.
And I apologize, I left my paperwork at home.
The policy you're referring to is on page 314 of your packet. It's line 35 and 36 at the very bottom. I believe that's the policy you're referring to, and that's what P&Z asked to be amended. So their suggestion was to change that policy, that new policy being drafted here, encourage Florida-friendly and Florida native landscape design to state to change to encourage Florida-friendly plants to require majority of the plants to be Florida native. That was P&Z's recommendation. Are you suggesting something different?
No, I think that, again, it's something that should be in a code and not necessary in the plan.
This would be implemented with code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, agree. I like it as long as it's implemented. Anything else, council? Vice Mayor?
Yes. This is kind of in relationship with the conflict of interest. Brad, as you have been here in Titusville working, doing what you're doing for a number of years that I'm aware of, and as you have seen the vision of Titusville grow, how does that happen in your mind? How does the vision of Titusville, when you put together a comprehensive plan, when you are begin to work your magic, if you will, to envision the city in the future from an educational prospect, how do you come about that idea?
This project started several years ago because we saw that the city is growing fast, and that growth is still continuing at a higher rate every year. And we're running out of land, and what's available is marginal lands. And it's very difficult to build on areas that are already built or to redevelop those areas with the current regulations and comprehensive plan policies we have in place. So when we looked at that several years ago, we came to the council at the time and asked for permission to evaluate that. When we came back, we said, we need to really restructure the comprehensive plan policies and the code to allow a lot more flexibility as far as redevelopment along our commercial quarters in our downtown and other areas. And that would help alleviate the pressure on some of these marginal lands as far as growth, to allow more density in more appropriate areas in the city that currently don't have that density. That's where we saw, and that's what we came to the council at the time. And that's what we've been emphasizing ever since.
Yeah, and when you go out to get a firm, if you will, to help you do that, normally there is not any person bidding on to do something with that. You're just trying to get the city's ducks in a row, per se, so that you can be ready for future planning if someone comes back.
Sure, we drafted a scope and brought that before council with how we wanted to see this done. So the consultant was hired to help us create that or help meet that scope that was drafted and approved at that time, including.
And, with that thought, you have no control over who, if I, developer, want to come in and do this, you have no control over who me, developer, hires, do you?
Okay, so we don't have any control over who a private citizen will hire to do work for them, if that's what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
I just want to say that, I have studied urban planning and city planning when I was in college a million years ago. And I thought the comprehensive plan was well done. And, everything, it has to be a living, breathing document. And, I look forward to seeing what the state, kind of comments the state comes back with on this. But I think you guys have done a yeoman's job on putting it together.
And I probably should point out that unless I'm wrong on this, we're just simply moving this to the state for review. Anybody else? All right, call the cards.
Laura Lee Thompson.
Laura Lee Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue, and I am the chair of your Environmental Commission. So first of all, I want to explain the difference between Florida-friendly and native plants. So there's this designation called Florida-friendly, and these are plants that will survive in our zone, but they're not necessarily friendly for native species, birds, bees, and butterflies. A lot of them are they're just plants, basically, that will survive here. And that's why they're called Florida friendly. Native plants is what is being torn out when these developments happen, and it's native plants that support the incredible diversity of bird species that we are so fortunate to have here in our community. So this is the perfect place. You want to put the policy in place in the comp plan, and then you change your LDRs and your ordinances then to match the vision that's in your comp plan. So I think that the Planning and Zoning Board was right on when they want to change that language. Take out the words encourage Florida-friendly plants and change it to require a majority of the plants to be Florida native. And I wasn't here at the last meeting because I was down at the Bird Festival party, which was really good, but I wished I'd have been here. But I was really, really proud of the discussion that took place after you pulled the tree list off the agenda, because you still had a lot of speakers and you had a lot of discussion among yourselves about your vision, and you even talked about a goal of 60 to 70% native plants in the landscape, the tree list for the landscape manual, technical manual. This is the place to start laying the groundwork for that. This is exactly what you need. Put that language in the comp plan, and then we can go back and design the ordinances then to make that vision a reality. Thank you.
Good words, thank you. Next card.
Tony Schifelo.
Tony Schifolo, the Historic Norwood House. I've been following this comp plan for quite some time through many permutations, and I didn't bother to print out the one that's in your agenda packet, but I have a couple of observations about it. To begin with, I'd just like to say I'm opposed just in general to most of it because I think it's having the fox writing the rules for the hen house. Amen. And I would like to say also that the incentives that are written into this are for the foxes to not eat all the hens at one time. And the policies favor the developers, who are represented often by the same people who helped develop and wrote a lot of this. So I'm not opposed to a density pool in the downtown area. I think that's good to have apartments above shops. It's very New Yorkish, isn't it? The gateway corridors, I would like to see the tree mitigation fund used to replant trees rather than to beautify the gateways. But I like kind of the projects of driving into a city or town and seeing neat signs. So I just want to say, especially before the West Titusville thing comes up, Mr. Parrish, that I'm leery of this is the Titusville Dream Book. And it should be, what the citizens want to see. And like I said earlier about a lot of the budget meetings, what came out was what went in. That's kind of through all these things. The only changes I noticed specifically before my time runs out was the weakening of language where some shalls, the city shall, to should. It was weakened. In strategy 1.10.3.1 on page 329 of your packet. Also, again, in 1.10.3.3, shall was should. And then at one place, it was from will was changed to may. My mom is named Gracie May, M-A-E, and she says, when she says, she's introduced, she says, well, Gracie may, and Gracie may not. So, the city may not.
Grace, you may.
I had a question for Tony.
Go ahead.
Before. Tony, I am curious about your opinions and thoughts on this. One, when it comes back from the state, that's when we will have 2 readings before. So as I'm prepping for that, I would like to know what issues you do have with it. So is it the shoulds that you would want us to look at? I do plan to still continue to look at this
Yeah,
even when it
and
goes
it
to the
was,
state.
it was highlighted in the packet on your, on page 329 on the
Yes, it
agenda
is.
packet.
Sure.
And section 110.
So you would prefer should to be?
Well, I just think I think it weakens it to change it from shall. Shall is thou shalt not covet thy neighbor, right? You shouldn't be jealous.
Okay, so that's one.
I mean, that's just for instance, I have lists of things that I have sent to Mr. Parrish over time about some of the, but most.
The ones that I would be curious about the ones that you feel like are not really protecting the citizens and don't have I would like to see those if you would send them to me.
I can get that to you. I realize that this has to be transmitted and that we have a chance when it comes
Yes.
back to work on it. I do hope the public will be invited to participate in that. You know I'm interested.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Good input. Thank you, Member Stokel. Next card.
Holly Kurth.
I'm going to pass on this, but I didn't want to yell it from my seat, so I'm passing.
Oh, okay. That was one of the most impressive passes I've ever seen. Thank you. Next card.
The last card is Stan Johnston.
Stan, you passing too?
Stan Johnston, and I'm not passing. Mr. Parrish said, quoting him today, alleviate pressure and allow more density.
Allow what? I'm sorry.
Alleviate pressure and allow more density. We're going to allow more density and alleviate pressure? You got to be kidding. When I go over to Orlando, I think, who planned this? This traffic is horrible there. That's what planners did.
Agree.
Allow more density. And I think about that when I come to the intersection of State Road 50 and South Street. How many times do I wait? Sometimes 2, 3 times the stoplight changes. I'm sure many of you have gone there. In fact, it's today. I had to go through 2 stoplights, two stoplight changes to get through. And that was just going 405, straight 405. That was about 12:30 today. So that's not supposed to be really high traffic time. That was twice. So mobility and transportation, this comp plan is from, and Mr. Cole mentioned about the comp plan. Very pleased with the comp plan. Well, the comp plan's not being followed. If you'll notice that I have made a complaint against Brad Parrish and and Eddie Glendo regarding the resilient Titusville report. And because the city is not following the comp plan for the stormwater management plan. In fact, I even bought and gave them a copy because they're not using it. They're not doing it. When Mr. Stauffer was in charge of it, he never even heard of it when I talked to him in 2012. Never even heard about the stormwater plan. And he was a head man of comprehensive plan for stormwater management for the city of Titusville. Never even saw the document. You saw how thick that thing was. So we're not following it. We're not following the comp plan. I think more density and height is something that I'm against. And of course, if I were run, as some people have run for council, they say, no, we're not going to go for more density and so forth like that. So I don't think this is the dream book. What we're having is more like a nightmare. Sisson Road should be very much considered because it's a county road. All these county roads that the city's not giving right-of-way, additional right-of-way when they review the projects. not good. 40 units per acre is out of the question. For the question in sometimes tourist areas like hotels and so forth, but, okay, I'm against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards? Member Nelson?
Did you want to? Go.
I'd like to move the comprehensive plan amendment 120-24, transmittal of the draft comprehensive plan amendment to amend the future land use, transportation, and housing elements and adopt a citywide goal with objectives and policies.
Yes.
I would second that, but I do want to follow the P and Z's language. And one point, hope that says 5.8, regarding Florida native.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Then,
Does that motion include all three recommendations of P and Z, or just the one on that
one on
particular
the plan.
policy?
Plans,
The
right?
1.5.8?
well, there was one for, they changed, as I understand it, they changed the top, or, no. There was only that one.
I think she's requesting.
One was to, we talked about it, and we said it would be better in a code.
The height,
in the
yeah.
ordinance. Right. And so that would include the change to encourage Florida native plants.
Okay.
The majority of the plants to be Florida native.
I stand corrected. Yes, their recommendation really only affects one particular policy of the comp plan amendment that's before you, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Go with that.
So,
I accepted it, yeah.
okay.
And just on a technical thing, I believe the motion was read 1-20-24. It's obviously 1-2024. No big deal. Just want to make sure we don't have
What
any
did I say?
issues.
I'm 77 years old.
Check the replay. All right, I have a motion, and I have a second. Member Cole, this time, I believe, was a motion. Member Nelson was the second. They flipped us. All right, with that, roll call vote.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes. Passed unanimously. City Manager?
On to item 10A, which is small-scale comprehensive plan amendment, SSA number 2-2023, the registry at Sand Point. The city attorney will read ordinances number 1-2024, 2-2024, 3-2024 for the record.
These three ordinances, just for everyone's awareness, the first one will be the annexation, second is a land use change, and the third ordinance I read will be for rezoning. Ordinance number 1-2024, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending Section 7, Chapter 63, 2001, Laws of Florida, Special Acts of 1963, by annexing certain property located east of Old Dixie Highway, having parcel ID number 21-35-29-00778, to be included within the city limits, providing for severability, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 2-2024, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending ordinance number 60, 1988, which adopted the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville, by amending the future land use map, by changing the land use designation on approximately 29.88 plus minus acres of property located west of US Highway 1 and east of Old Dixie Highway, having Brevard County parcel IDs 21, 35, 28, 00, 520, 21, 35, 28, 00, 522.1, 21, 35, 28, 00, 535, 21, 35, 28, 00, 520.1, 21, 35, 28, 00, 539, 21, 35, 29, 00, 793, 21, 35, 29, 00, 778, and 21, 35, 28, 00, 517. From Res 4, Brevard County, public, semi-public, and commercial low-intensity future land use designations to the high-density residential City of Titusville future land use designation, providing for severability, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 3-2024, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending ordinance number 5, 1993 of the City of Titusville by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference, by changing agricultural residential AU, Brevard County, general use GU, City of Titusville, and hospital medical HM, City of Titusville zoning districts to the planned development PD zoning district on approximately 29.86 plus minus acres of property located west of US Highway 1 and east of Old Dixie Highway, having Brevard County parcel ID numbers 21 35 28 00520, 21 35 28 00522.1, 21 35 28 00535, 21 35 28 00520.1, 21 35 28 00539, 21 35 29 00793, 21 35 29 00778, and 21 35 28 00517, providing for severability, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing for an effective date.
At the February 7th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission, this item was tabled at the applicant's request to their next meeting, which is 21 February 2024. That motion was 6-0. Again, to reiterate, the first two items are an annexation and a land use change, which are legislative, and a rezoning, which is quasi-judicial. Staff is here for presentation and answer any questions that you may have.
I'll clarify just to get it out there for those that aren't looking at the agenda. This is a first reading. There's no motion and no vote on this issue tonight. Member Stokel.
Yep, I just had a procedural question because these would be three separate votes at the second hearing. What were to happen if council was in agreement for an annexation, but then not in agreement or majority doesn't get it for a land use change? Is the annexation then mute, or is the annexation happen but they don't have their land use? What happens in that situation?
In part, since that's an application from the applicant, it may be a position where if there's not an annexation, they may want the annexation approval contingent upon receiving the land use and
Okay.
zoning. That would be a discussion, I think, for the applicant partly of,
Okay.
do they, because they may not want that land annexed if they do not
Right,
receive the land
that's-
use and zoning. So
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yes. This is a lot. Yeah, this is a lot to sit down by your lonesome, so to speak, and try to figure out which way to go in this process. What I would like, if, with all that has been read and what has to be, what you want us to annex, do your best to simplify it in about a 4-minute presentation. Would you
Challenge
do that
accepted.
for me?
I'll direct the council to page 398 of your package. That's the existing future land use and the proposed future land use map. I feel like that exhibit may help best describe what's being requested here. This is page 398. And I'll give you a second to navigate to that page. Again, this is the existing future land use map on the left and then what's proposed on the right. So on the left-hand side, we've got the existing, there's 8 parcels that are involved in this request. And one of the parcels is the only one that's proposed to be annexed. You'll see that on the west side or left side of the screen on the existing future land use. It's the only parcel that doesn't currently have a color. The colors on the map indicate our future land use designations, and so because that one parcel is white, it indicates that it's not currently in the city and doesn't have a future land use designation. So that one sliver that's adjacent to Old Dixie Highway is what's proposed to be annexed into the city. The rest of the parcels are currently in the city. The majority of the property is in the commercial low intensity. That's the pink or magenta color. And then on the north side of the property, or the north boundary. So this subject property borders Temple Baptist to the north, Temple Baptist Church. And there's an existing parking facility that was constructed by Temple Baptist that currently encroaches into the property owned by the property owner that's requesting this application. In order to remedy to that, the applicant has proposed a land swap, which would trade the portion of the property currently owned by the applicant and give that to Temple Baptist, and in return, Temple Baptist would trade portions back to the applicant. So you'll notice that again, on that left-hand side map, there's the red outline is the subject property, and you'll see on the north property boundary, it jogs down and then up. That's indicating the triangles that are being swapped. The current property boundary is flat. So if the land swap, if this future land use amendment, annexation, rezoning were to be approved and the land swap were to be recorded, then the red line will become the existing boundary between Temple Baptist and the subject property. The property is along the East Coast, the East Central Florida Regional Rail Trail, our city's feature recreational amenity. So there's discussion about access. There's a single-family residence to the south, which is in the tan color, kind of in an anvil shape on the south. And it's a flag lot, so there's a stem of the property that leads out to US 1 and the trail. And I think that covers that. Is that my 4 minutes?
You did well, and I kept up with you as I studied this. And my still concern is that this land, this property has kind of a special value to it because of the proximity of the hospital, all of our doctor's offices and everything that are out there on the east side of US 1. And you would have to go through a lot of things and take away what the special use for this property is if we go and start changing too many designations on this property. And we will lose that advantage. One thing that Member Stokel said that always ring in my ear when I read these different maps is that we don't want to give up everything for a house to be put on. We don't want to do that. So that's my big concern as this project goes on is to, we want to keep some things as they are. We want to grow, but we still don't want to become New York City either. And we want to, if it's a designated where if we begin to grow and we need a bigger, larger medical facility, we don't have to try to put it in MIMS for Titusville. So those are my concerns on this property.
Mayor, if I could take a chance and give more of a clarifying response to Member Stokel's question
Please.
to me. It's a little unique in this situation because the annexation is only on a portion of the property. To the extent, and of course, if the annexation is denied, we are not going to put land use and zoning on county property. But this is unique because there's a portion of the property that's being annexed. I don't know to the extent that they would move forward in this binding site plan, what is incorporated in that Brevard County portion. So if it's not annexed, I have an assumption that they would have to go back and modify it if they wanted to continue with the city land use and zoning changes and develop it without that annexation. But these are questions I don't know. I just want to clarify that, typically if the annexation is denied, that is the end of the story because we cannot address land use and zoning on county property. But this is a portion of the property that's being annexed. So if the annexation is denied, then I would probably look at the applicant and say they want to come back and modify that and go forward. I couldn't answer that at this time.
Member Cole.
Vice Mayor Robinson, I just want to mention something you said about if the hospital wanted to expand. If we were to expand, I don't think we would expand to that particular property because that has never been in the stars. I think our long-range plans would be to expand so we wouldn't have to duplicate the services, administrative services and everything for another building. So I don't think that's in the cards, so I just was withdrawing that. I know.
Except that doesn't change my thought.
I know, but you were in the Coast Guard, so I understand that. Yeah.
I would say that much of what Vice Mayor said were some of my concerns when I first started looking at this. And again, despite what good information perhaps you are sharing with us, Member Cole, I would still say 20 years down the road, we don't know what's going to happen over there. I never had any idea that I'd be driving down, what is it, 417, 407, the one with Nemours.
Yeah.
That thing just came up like crazy, and it just kept going. And, you know, what a medical facility they have there. I'm not pretending we're going to do that, but I am saying we don't know what the medical building needs will be in 20, 30 years. And I have some concerns about changing that, but there's a lot to be heard still. I'm not trying to say that, but that was a concern I had. I believe the same as Vice Mayor was expressing. Member Nelson?
I was just going to say, I agree with the Vice Mayor. We don't know where we're going to be in the future. And this is not just a hospital. It's your ancillary services, your doctor's offices, your rehab services, all those things. So I'm really reluctant to change it.
Yeah, and if you get a visual, if they give that zoning away, or we give that zoning away, however that works, and the hospital does want to expand capital gains, et cetera, I can see where they don't have that. They've got to try to get some zoning, and it ends up out there between here and Port St. John.
Yeah.
And it makes no sense to me. That is our hospital medical zoning area right there. And it would be silly to not keep it that way.
And again, remember, we'll have the public hearing at the next meeting, evidence, and weigh that before you make any
As I said,
decisions.
I mean, I'll just share with you my first thought, and I've had first thoughts before, and then after we heard some things I didn't know, et cetera. Matter of fact, Member Cole shared some stuff that perhaps would say, well, that's not where they're going anyway, but that's just a concern. Member Stokel?
Yep. And to the city attorney, yeah, I think once we hear from the applicant, especially at the second reading, we'll be able to make our decision. But to the vice mayor's point, I think what he was saying is, as we look at the map, and you guys know I bring this map every time because this tells me what's our current land use look like right now. And as we're growing and as we are approving a lot of different residential developments, I look back to make sure that we're balancing out and we have enough commercial for all the residents that will be in our city. So currently this is, I think it's commercial low intensity, so that magenta color, and there's not a lot there. And so I think whether it's it won't be an expansion of the hospital, but maybe medical offices, maybe some type of commercial space that will be of benefit to our residents. So what I don't want, and I think we've all heard, is there's nothing to do in Titusville. Now we have all these homes that we've built and residents, but they're like traveling outside of Titusville city limits because we don't have that commercial space available anymore. So as we listen through the hearings and any hearings that we go through, this is what I always look at to see, okay, does this fit with our overall vision for all of our residents anytime we do any land use changes? So I just wanted to share that with you.
Anything else? Prelim? All right, call the cards.
Holly Kurth,
She's got paper. She's not come up to pass. Oh, you're fine.
This is my packet that I picked up over there. So, Holly Krath, I live at 1220 North Washington Avenue. You guys were talking about the single-family home. That's me. That tan single family that's in the middle of all that on the map.
Okay.
I don't have the
okay.
map. That's me. So my biggest worry with all this, I don't mind having houses put in front of me. The last time they tried to build there, it was supposed to be Palm Point. Palm Point, when the little, I don't know how to nicely say this, when they run away, they come to my house. So I already, with them across the street, a mile down the road, have cops swarming my house every other week because somebody escaped from Palm Point and they're running around in my woods with a gun. I have small kids. I would much rather drive through a neighborhood to get to my house than drive through a medical facility. Right now, we come in at Temple and we go down the little dirt path and it brings back to our house because we have the ingress, egress, easement, whatever the fancy word is called. But, I mean, I feel like anyone who, yes, Titusville needs to grow, but I would much rather, me personally, as living where I do, have neighbors around me. Right now, we have no neighbors. We live there by ourselves, surrounded by woods. I don't want some big fancy medical facility that I have to drive through, that I'm fighting traffic just to get into my own house because I'm stuck driving through a medical office parking lot. A lot of the people over in Maryland, they're worried like, oh, these people will be able to see in my backyard. They can see in my bedroom window and I'm not complaining, so why are you? I just feel like that sign's been up there selling that property for so long, everybody knew this was coming. Me personally, again, living where I do, in that random square in the middle of them building all the way around me, if I don't have a problem with it, I feel selfish saying this, but if I don't care, nobody else around me should care because I'm the one that's being swarmed, not anybody else sitting in here. Every meeting we go to, they're like, I don't want neighbors, I don't want neighbors. How do you think I feel? But if I'm okay with it, you have no say. I was nice when I came up last time, and I feel bad. I hope I'm still
No, you
being
did
nice.
well. Well said. Well said.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card, please.
Roy Tyson. You gonna pass? Okay, Kay St. Ange.
Oh, Ms. Kay?
Hello, Kay St. Ange, Maryland Avenue. 50 residents came to City Hall February 7th, hoping to express their concerns and opposition in regard to the registry's rezoning request, but they were not given a chance as P&Z tabled the agenda item. Residents had hoped P&Z's recommendation to council would be provided for your review for the first reading. I wish to briefly express to you tonight some of my concerns and some of my neighbors about this rezoning, so you can begin considering this with the other information provided you tonight. This nearly 30 acres is appropriately zoned hospital medical to provide medical services across US 1 from the hospital as our community grows. So often now we must drive 40 miles to see a specialist. HM zones are to be protected from encroachment from land uses that don't support medical facilities such as this complex per section 28-11. Another health network might want to build on this site, or a health and fitness center might want to build there as well. It's a long list of things that can be built. Secondly, a bald eagle chick is now in an eagle nest within the 660-foot buffer stipulated to protect nests by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Any activity that causes this nest and chick to be abandoned is subject to large fines for the Bald Eagle Protection Act. Staff admits the project encroaches on this buffer, the 660-foot buffer that is supposed to protect active eagle nests, destroying nearly 30 acres of native woods full of huge heritage trees and rare painted buntings to build 314 units right next to the nest would certainly disturb it and may very well cause it to be abandoned. The developer needs to be notified to contact the permitting agency and do whatever law stipulates to protect this nest and rare bird habitat. Bird populations have decreased 30% since 1970s. Let's protect these rare birds, the bald eagle and the painted buntings. Thirdly, residents were told by the applicant at the December 5 community meeting that access onto Old Dixie Highway would be limited to emergency vehicles and were provided a master plan indicating same. Now the master plan shows complete access, yet no community meeting was scheduled to inform us of this significant change. Staff is insisting the access must be complete, which will result in a lot of extra traffic onto Old Dixie, which has no shoulders, no sidewalk, no drainage. Pedestrian and bicyclists must use the traffic lane. Just last month, when a solid waste truck stopped in the traffic lane, a motorcyclist ran into the rear of the truck and died. And any additional traffic from the registry will likely cause more death. I have a couple more sentences, if you would mind.
30 seconds.
Okay. Hear our concerns and consider them as you read the information provided you for this first reading. Keep in mind, P&Z already recommended denial of this rezoning request in April 2022. Their reasonings are still valid today. Incompatibility with housing, existing housing, wetland protection, active eagle nests, and access onto Old Dixie. When you make your decision about rezoning, retain hospital medical zoning. Deny rezoning to allow this huge 314-unit complex on this wooded acreage full of ancient trees and rare birds. It's a special site. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card.
Tony Schiffelo.
Tony Schiffelo, 715 Tropic Street. I believe that this land should remain zoned hospital medical for the reasons that have been stated, but also, Member Cole, because your hospital may not even be your hospital after a while if Randy Fine gets his way, and who knows then what's going to happen as a patient who has to drive to Rockledge and beyond for medical treatment, as many people in the room probably do. I appreciate having Parish Hospital there and perhaps then the ancillary places across the street, rather than seeing those heritage trees taken down and the area destroyed by cramming a bunch of apartments in. Kimley Horn did the traffic study, and although it's very intensive, the thing that stuck out to me was that they estimated at rush hour 57% of the residents would exit on US 1, with 43% exiting on Old Dixie Highway, which they had said would not be an access point. And to think about Dixie Highway with those old ancient oaks overhanging. And then staff said, well, you got to have that hard access on Old Dixie because you can't have all that traffic exiting onto US 1. And the conclusion was that there would be 32 additional trips on US 1 if they couldn't exit through the Old Dixie. So not only would I not change the zoning in the first place, in the second place, I would not allow them to cram all those apartments in there and then have access to Old Dixie Highway. I would hold them to keeping what they originally said. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card.
Lord Lee Thompson.
Lorley Thompson, 3550 Irwin Avenue. And first of all, I thought that 10B was part of 10A, so I put 10B on my card, but I'm not going to comment on 10B. Thank you. So there, you've got a picture of some birds there, a little teeny tiny bird. It's actually the most colorful bird in the whole United States, and a great big one that is protected. It's protected by both state and federal laws. Migratory bird, federal is Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act, and the Endangered Species Act. And then it's protected in the state by FWC, and a permit is required for any kind of activity that's occurring inside the 660-foot buffer zone. Developers must consult with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service when proposing any kind of land use activities within the 660-foot buffer zone around an eagle nest. You cannot agitate or bother an eagle's nest to a degree that causes or is likely to cause injury to the eagle, a decrease in its productivity by substantially interfering with normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering behavior, or nest abandonment by substantially interfering with normal breeding, feeding, or sheltering behavior. Normally what happens, even if you develop outside the 660-foot protected area, usually the eagle will abandon the nest. So, Titusville Special, We have these really cool birds, and the threat to the painted bunting, which is people come here to Titusville, to North Brevard County, specifically looking for that bird. And the reason that it's declining is habitat loss. So we're talking about habitat loss here. The very small preservation areas of 0.15 acres all the way up to 0.79, 0.8 of an acre are insufficient for the continued existence of both painted buntings and bald eagles. The fines are really big, like $100,000 or for individuals, or $200,000 for an organization, and possibly a year in imprisonment. So you don't want to mess around with the bald eagle's nest. I really don't want to see that property annexed and access to Old Dixie. Our section of Old Dixie Highway is one of the longest intact sections of the original US 1, north-south corridor in the state. It's historic. It's important. And if you start increasing the traffic, then you're going to have to widen it and take out those heritage oaks. And I would like to see the original land use and zoning remain on this property, because I think that a less intensive use of hospital support facilities would be a lot better. There's other areas where we can build apartment buildings. This is a really special piece of property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card.
Michael Myjack.
That was
Hello,
nicely
Mike.
done. I won't have to take so much time. First, I wanted to compliment you on the Joinerville thing. I think that's really good. I think what we should really be looking at maybe is a historic overlay district for that whole area, and really plan to make that a centerpiece in Titusville. I think it's important that we don't lose it to gentrification. Second is more of a procedural thing. Why do we have a first reading when you haven't had time to incorporate the inputs from your other committees and get staff's comments on those before it comes back here for a potentially first reading? It seems like we've got the cart in front of the horse here, with just the only advantage is it saves us a couple of weeks, to get the job done. But we're sacrificing, our committees and our comments before it comes to you guys. And I think that's rushing the thing. To the point at hand, I think, Mayor, you're spot on. This is a hospital area. It's a hospital district. 2-3 generations from now, I hope it's still a hospital district, because it's the only one we got right now in the city, right? So we have to protect that, not just for us, but our offspring and our progeny and those that will inherit the city from us, because, we're here temporarily. That land is a very special piece of property. There are some tremendous trees on that land that if you haven't had the experience to visit, you really should. It's a piece of work. It's like going to the Enchanted Forest. It's an enchanted piece. I hope you guys do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next card.
Dwight Severs.
For the record,
How you doing?
morning. For the record, my name is Dwight Severs, and my family and I have owned property there on Georgia Avenue for the last 40 years. And I first want to simply say that I support my fellow single-family residents in opposing the land use change and the PD zoning. The reason why I'm here tonight was not to talk about the merits. On February 7th, I filed an objection to the proceeding. And apparently based upon that, the applicant decided to request the hearing before Planning and Zoning Commission be delayed. And the letter indicated, and I don't know whether you have any of this information or correspondence, but I'm here tonight to address my objection to the proceeding. I did not receive, I had no notice from the applicant nor from the city that this would be heard tonight. So in an abundance of caution, I sent an email to you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager and city attorney as to whether that issue would come up tonight. And at about 10:04 this morning, I did receive a call from Mr. Broom. And he reminded me, and I appreciate him calling me. He indicated that he had no idea whether it would come up tonight, but as a precaution, the representative from Kimley Horn may be at the meeting. I said, have you talked with Kimley Horn's attorney as to whether they're going to be at this meeting? He said, no, but as a caution. So I'm here if that issue is to be addressed. Do you have a copy of my objection? I don't know how you could hear it tonight anyway. So I'm certainly prepared to be present at your public hearing and address the main issue as to why this should be denied. I have a copy, if you would like, of my objection. Would you like a copy
Could you
tonight?
give to the clerk, please? Thank you.
And I'm available to answer any questions if you have any. But
Thank you, Dwight.
I will be back.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Next card.
The last card is Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnston, a professional engineer that you never listen to. That's a good introduction. Is that, this is the sheet right over here, I got over here. It says on here, it says Kimley Horn as both a consultant for the city and as applicant for a small-scale plan amendment. And then the next thing we have, 10A, is the small-scale, Kimley Horn. How can you do that? How can they be contracting to work for the city on this and do something in the city? That's a conflict of interest. Hello? Hello? Anybody listening? Hello? How can you do that? Is anybody listening? Okay, here's what I see is that, I asked the question is there a survey required for this application? The answer is yes or no. Nobody wants to answer that, okay. Because there is no survey for this property in this package. There's no survey. There's a description, but there's no survey. It looks like a survey, not a survey. In the particular information that they have in there, they have some drawings that shows a municipal drainage ditch, page 408. I bet there's no comments in our review about that municipal drainage ditch. I bet there isn't. Because I expect that is in, you know what that might be in? Stormwater Management Plan of the City of Titusville, Greater City of Titusville. I'm requesting that staff look at that. I'm requesting that P&Z look at that. I'm requesting that council look at it. I'm asking even the TEC to look at that. It appears to me, it looks like TEC should look at it right now from what Mr. Myjack and Laura Lee and somebody else said. So that's another idea. So this is going to be quasi-judicial. Right now, it's not quasi-judicial. Isn't that correct? It's not quasi-judicial at this meeting.
This is just first reading. This is not a quasi-judicial
It's not
hearing.
quasi-judicial, but next time it will be quasi-judicial.
Of course.
So I'd like to see what Kimley Horn's going to do in a quasi-judicial thing, and that they're having a conflict of interest. That's going to be a big one. Now, you might want to warn them that I'm a professional engineer also. So let's see what happens. Right now is on page 396, the delineated aerial on page 396 disagrees with the biotech map on page 408. That's another comment. And I believe what you need to have is think about prescriptive rights on this, because it looks like some issues with prescriptive rights, and the ditch may be outside of the easement that has been planned for it and so forth. Okay, please do it. Check your comp plan.
Any other cards? Council, any comments? We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Oh, Lord, it may take me 5 minutes to stand. And back in order. City Manager.
We are now on item 10B, which is rezone number 5, 2023, Verona Master Plan, AKA Willow Creek. This is the first reading. The city attorney will read the ordinances affected.
Ordinance number 6, 2024, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending ordinance number 9, 2017, by amending the master plan of the Plan Development PD zoning district imposed on approximately 638 plus minus acres of property located west of Grissom Parkway, east of Challenger Parkway, State Road 407, and Interstate 95, at the western terminus of Willow Creek Boulevard, having Brevard County parcel ID numbers 23, 35, 09, 001, 23, 35, 04, 002, 23, 35, 09, YRB10, and 23, 35, 10, YIWC3, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, and providing for an effective date.
On February 7th, 2024, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the requested change with the following condition. A traffic calming design be provided for Village A and Village C to eliminate the long straight-aways in those subdivisions at a time of submittal of engineering plans. That vote was 5-1. One member was concerned about losing industrial commercial land and voted no. Staff is here to present to you and answer any questions that you may have on this first reading of rezone number 5, 2023.
Brad, you, the one member that had the concern about losing industrial commercial land, can you comment on that? Do you feel like that's a valid concern?
Yes, Commissioner Rogers and the P&Z expressed some concern about losing what is currently slated for commercial and industrial uses. So the master plan that currently governs this property identifies an area that could be used for those types of uses. The request for you tonight is to remove all of that. Mr. Rogers expressed concern with the trend of losing some of the capability of being able to build something that's non-residential. He didn't express anything further than that.
Okay, and when I read it, I certainly can see some concerns in certain areas. So I get his thought process there. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I understand that in this request, the density is not going to change the housing.
That's correct. The master plan has an approved density of 1,277 total units.
Right.
And they're not exceeding that request.
Okay. In the replacement process, if they take the industrial and turn it into residential, I understand a lot in the exchange is going to be turned into what?
So the majority of the area will be considered open space. The borough pit that is there existing, they are planning on expanding that into a recreational lake.
A lake?
Yes,
It's
a
gonna
lake.
turn into water?
Yes.
Okay.
And they're providing recreational amenities surrounding the lake
Like
and the area.
Sidewalks around the water, correct?
Yes, so
And
recreational
benches,
trail,
right?
they're proposing 3 benches, and staff has taken the existing conditions of approval and taken them and incorporated that into the new request, and that has been provided to you on page 749 of your packets.
749?
Yes, and that's taken the original conditions of approval and transferred them over into the new ordinance document that regulates the master plan.
Well, I just understand, what we were going to use for commercial, where the city could probably draw some revenue from. And we're taking that and turning it into, put in housing. We guess we would get housing, but it was still part of the the density is not going to change. It was still part of, but the extra above that 1,200 or so, 1,275, I saw some 1,226 or something like that. The revenue that the commercial property could bring to our city would be lost. Is that correct?
That is what's being requested.
All right. Those are all my questions. This is first reading, right?
First reading, Member Stokel.
Yep. And this may be a question for Mr. Honeycutt instead. I'm just curious as to why the change. Are they, yeah, I think I'm just curious as to why.
I believe the applicant can probably address that better.
Can we call the applicant up on the first reading? Just making sure. Come on up, Mr. Honeycutt, please, and swear yourself in and your name and address, and then.
Good evening. Rodney Honeycutt, 3700 South Washington Avenue. This is a first reading, so I won't do anything but try to answer questions that you have. And so the original PUD, I think back in 2017, about 7 years ago, there was a helicopter school out at the airport, Bristol Academy. And they were getting a lot of complaints because they were flying over Wendover. And so when we proposed the PUD for a residential, the airport, on behalf of Bristow, asked us to leave a transition zone and not develop residential north of that. And so that's what's in the original PUD. And so the helicopter school, I guess, continued to get enough complaints without this project that they're gone or some reason. And so the airport no longer has any request that we provide a transition zone and that it not be zoned residential. And so also the owner desires to enlarge that bar pit for an enlarged lake area. And so if you look at your, I guess if you look at your, I don't know if my page numbers are right, I copied this, but page 401, you can, if you look at that, the area where the bar pit's going to be enlarged to a large lake is surrounded by subdivision A and a no-access ramp for I-95 onto 407 and wetlands. And so the access to that area, should it be commercial, would have to impact wetlands. And if you look at, and I'm not sure where your page is for the proposed development, but there'll be no impact to wetlands by enlarging that area and having a lake. And so we felt like that was a benefit also for doing this and to remove that transition zone. That leaves a small area up there for a multifamily residential area. So the developer, KB Homes, that's developing this site, the main things that they would like to get out of this is to eliminate that transition zone and allow this lake, the first priority. The second priority is in residential subdivisions in Titusville, you're allowed to have a model home, but in a PUD residential area, you're not allowed to have a model home. So we're asking that that model homes be allowed also in these areas. That's the second most important thing to them. And the last important thing would be adding the multifamily Village E. And so that's the priorities to do this. By adding Village E multifamily, we still stay within the approved density for this area. And I don't know if that answered
Member Stokel, you good?
Yes, kind of. Just to follow up with that.
Hold Member Stokel.
So, okay, I guess it sounds like there was some limitations because of the transition piece. And now that that's not an issue anymore, you kind of wanted to redesign, is kind of what I'm hearing. I guess with that, so we're keeping the same amount of units. I think it was 1277, and now it's just kind of reconfiguring how best to still have that many units. I guess I would like to see, one, I think that increasing the lake to me, and maybe this is not correct, it's trying to account for making sure that we have proper engineering and that homes that are being built there, there's some place for the water to go. Like there's enough open space is what I would like to think that's happening by that.
So, yeah, so there's, it does provide a lot more open space too by doing that. And it allows a lot longer trail length. In the
Okay.
original plans, there were trails proposed around the development, but due to wetlands and the Water Management District and the Corps of Engineers, we can't do that. And so these will all be in uplands around the lake, and it will provide a lot more trail advantage.
Okay, and so, yeah, to my point of what would be important to me, and I appreciate hearing what's important to the developers, would be making sure we have enough open space as we're getting new development. And I'm really cautious about, I don't want people's homes flooded, and I feel like I'm seeing that happening. So I would like to make sure we can preserve what wetlands and uplands we can, have enough open space. And then, especially with the PUD, I think part of that and the vision for that is to have this village feel. And so I would like to make sure that they are incorporating good amenities and they're not just trying to do bare minimum as we are kind of going through it. And I don't know what our decision will be on like the next steps with the model home and then the multifamily, because I want to be accommodating for them, but I also want them to really make this a nice place for the residents that are moving into it, to have as many amenities as possible. Because I think that was the original plan in mind, was this PUD, we're going to have this nice village and, you know, families being able to enjoy, stay, walk the neighborhood, and not just doing the bare minimum, like throwing up a bench and saying, okay, we're making it recreational, but really trying to invest and make it a nice place. That would be, I guess, my request of them.
Couple of things I'll add, and then I'll be quiet. It's only the first reading. So first of all, when you turn off of Grissom Parkway in this subdivision, it's a mile before you have a road that turns to the right. Everything is wooded and preserved for a mile. Now, 2/10 of that mile is in the commercial area, and that's cleared. But inside the subdivision, there's 8/10 of a mile. There'll never be an access or a subdivision adjacent to it. It'll always be wooded, and that's pretty special. And then also is due to saving the wetlands and really minimizing the impacts. I mean, there's a large area. I think it's 45% of open space there'll be on this project. And so I just wanted to throw that out.
Any other question, Member Nelson?
I was going to say, it is a beautiful development. I mean, seriously, you did a great job. But my question is, P&Z talked about traffic calming. Are any plans for it?
So
I see
I'm not the engineer.
teenagers.
I'm not the engineer of record for those. There's 2 villages left. They haven't been designed. It's Village A and Village C. And I know that was a recommendation because some of the long roads, it's not a code requirement. So if you decided that you wanted to follow that, it would need to, for staff to take that guidance, it would need to be part of the motion.
Okay, can do that.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
I do have one question or one clarification I want to bring up, Ms. Stokel's question about the pond, the lake. Our understanding is not a stormwater-related facility. It's not related to any kind of stormwater requirement or design. That's our understanding.
That's correct.
Recreational.
There's a different purpose, there's an initial purpose for wanting to dig in that area, but the result is going to be a recreational trail with the benches that is proposed.
All right. Mr. Honeycutt, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Council, anything else to add on that one? All right, color cards.
One card at Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnson, I don't have any objection to this, but first time I've seen an issue of, we've had issues of traffic calming, but this appears to be an issue of helicopter calming. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, this is the first reading. No motion, no vote. City manager.
On to old business, which is item 11A, which is parking standards advisability. The city code describes the required number of and dimensions of parking spaces. Staff had requested from council advisability to take a look and do some research on the parking space dimensions and the number of parking spaces. And this was from feedback that we had received from some of the developers that said Titusville has some of the highest parking requirements compared to other jurisdictions in the county. So with that, Mr. Parrish will go over our findings and make a recommendation to council that we either move forward or not.
Well, Council, at your last time you asked, or I brought this back before you, you asked for some research. So we provided a little bit in there. I won't go through it in detail, but I'll just give you the highlights of it. If at the end, though, you are not inclined to go forward with this approval of this advisability, we will ask if maybe we can limit it to those kind of changes that are related to low-impact development, and I'll explain what I mean in a moment. We went ahead and looked at a couple of projects where we typically approve or process a request to reduce the number of parking spaces or the size of parking spaces, and we put in the packet in here, and I just kind of described the summary of it on page 759 of your packet on the cover sheet of this agenda item. And you'll see on the very bottom, it says enclosed are 2 example projects. And I stated here that per our estimate, Luna Trails was just an approved and constructed site plan completed. If they did not receive a waiver from our development review committee for reducing their parking spaces or dimensions of spaces, they would be required to have added an additional 38 parking spaces to be already approved 172 without a waiver. The additional 38 spaces would have equated to 12,000 plus square feet of impervious surfaces. So that project actually operates appropriately. It works with the parking that they have there. Another one on the next page, we looked at the Durango site plan, and if they did not receive their waiver, they would have had to add 2,700 plus square feet of impervious surfaces without that waiver. We included those plans so you can see them in your agenda packet. We also provided some research on page 761 that just kind of gives you a comparison of other communities in our area as far as parking requirements. Ours are pretty high compared to some of the other communities. And we get, I think, probably about a third or maybe just a little above that of the types of waiver requests for design that are brought before our development review committee are parking related of some sort. A lot of these requests do ask for, or they kind of help, you can help justify reduction of your parking or other waivers if you incorporate some kind of LID, low impact development best management practice, which we have identified in our low impact development ordinance. And so if they can justify that or propose a BMP that's a bona fide BMP that really works, and still demonstrate that they can reduce their parking and have the project work correctly, 9 times out of 10, they get that approved by the DRC. Obviously, each one of these requests have to abide by the city's criteria for review, but the DRC uses. And so the DRC actually, the members of the staff have actually asked me to bring this before you to see if there's any way we can provide some additional flexibility. Again, if you're not inclined to allow us to look at this in a more broad way, we are suggesting on page 760 of your packet there, very top there, we stated here the majority of the requests involve a low impact development best management practice. Parking requirements could be reduced to be approved by right or approved with an administrative waiver with a bona fide low impact development best management practice. What I mean by that is instead of a waiver going before the full committee, the development review committee, We do have a process that is more administrative. It's left to me. I do rely on my staff to give me input on that. But with criteria that we have in our code, I can review and our staff can review a request to waive parking on an administrative level. And then we would, if you agree, we would come back to you with an amendment to the ordinance that will allow this flexibility, impact development, BMP. With that, I'll try and answer your questions.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, Brad, and I know this is advisement. We have not gotten to the population number where we don't have enough parking. Is that correct?
Quite understand the question.
Well, we don't need to reduce parking because we don't have enough, the size of parking, because we don't have enough parking for the cars that we have.
I mean, there's two types of requests we get. So just number of parking spaces. A multifamily development, for example, requires for each residential unit, regardless of the size, 2 spaces plus a half space for guest parking. That's 2.5 per unit, basically. The typical standard you'll see in a lot of communities, especially suburban style communities, is maybe 1.75, 1.85, generally,
Comparison.
per unit. And it usually works. In a more urbanized area, like in our downtown, you really have a lot of density, and you have different types of parking strategies. You can get away with maybe 1.2 or 1.25 number of spaces per unit, which is pretty low, but it could work. So, but the 2.5 is actually the highest in Brevard County. As far as the space size, typically you'll see the standard size of a parking space is 9 feet wide, 18 feet long. Our code requires 10 feet wide, 20 feet long. And when you add that up with all the number of spaces required, that's a lot of impervious spaces they have to put on their property. We have strategies to help alleviate that, impervious pavement and other BMPs. But a lot of times, some applicants come to us and say, it's really an unnecessary requirement. I can probably maybe mix it. Sometimes they'll ask for a mixture. Some of my spaces be 9 by 18 and maybe some be 10 by 20 and kind of mix it that way. But they still have to go before the DRC for a waiver.
Well, with that being said, is that I like large spaces.
Same.
My personal thing, but because of, as you, wonderful chart on page, I think 261, or 761, where you do the comparison of the chart. That really explains it and makes it clear.
Yes, it does.
But what I would, in advisement, as you go through this, keep as much of Titusville as you can keep. Okay. I understand that you want to, that's asking a lot for the developers and the builders that's come in. You want to be kind of like the other cities, but we still want to be Titusville as well. Okay.
I think that, I'm going to just interject, that chart is, if you don't know and you've never studied it, it's very, very strange how they do parking. You know, nursing homes, one space, 2 patient beds, plus 1 space, employee on largest shift. Wow. I will tell you what, as I look at this, I can tell you for sure we will not be able to legislate parking. I mean, we can look at this all day. I mean, you know, this one over here in Melbourne, hospitals, 1 space, 2 patient beds, plus 1 space, 1.5 employees, plus 1 space physician on largest shift. Good luck with that. Member Stokel.
Yes. So I guess I'm looking at it as there were 25 waivers in a little over 10 years. And so I don't really want to change it at this time personally. I feel like I've tried parking in some of those smaller spaces and I can't park in them. I mean, 3 of us drive a truck. So I personally, I feel like I've seen some of the smaller ones. I'm not a fan. Sometimes even when I'm backing out, because of even like if you shrink the width and the length, and I get we still will do the waivers. I'm for that if they come through. I just don't want to make our standard lower because I feel like everyone at that point will then do it. And it will change Titusville, in my opinion, and I'm just not a fan.
I'm leading away from that fandom as well. Member Nelson?
So I'm thinking, I like the idea for your LID projects, going through an administrative review instead of having to go in front of your board. And I gotta say, when I look at it, changing the size, I think we're just adding more impervious surface. So to me, that's sort of like, I know those with trucks would prefer the larger.
Well, it's not even a prefer. It's really and truly, there's times you just got to pull around and there can't park here. You can't make it. And they keep making the spaces
Don't you
smaller
post my
and
little
smaller.
car? If we got rid of all the electric cars, we wouldn't have that problem.
Well, smaller spaces, and it sounds like you're making more parking spots, but I'm not a fan.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so at least for the LID, can we agree on that? Administrative review? Do an administrative review for the LID, give them credit, give them less parking.
Look at it, but keep Titusville, Titusville.
Okay. At least you got that.
Well, we need a motion direction from you, if that's the way, because what you're suggesting, Nelson, is, would require us to come up with an ordinance. Because right now, the practice is that you can get, the code allows you to go for a waiver, but before the Development Review Committee. So you go before them to justify your reduction.
Okay, so I would make that motion.
Well, don't make a motion because I've still got
Oh,
people.
wait a minute, we got
Member
cards.
Cole.
Yes, I agree with Member Stokel that it's oftentimes difficult, and especially when you park and you open your door, you hit someone's car. And then the other problem that people have is that the distance between the parking spaces when you're backing out are so close, and especially with the larger vehicles. So I would be in favor of letting things stay the way they are and go in for the waivers as we have done in the past.
If that's a motion, I'll second it.
We have
Hold
a
on.
card.
Hold on. I don't even have everybody done up here yet. Are we done up here? I mean, I got them popping up all over the place. All right, call the card.
One card, Stan Johnston.
He drives a little car, don't listen.
Sometimes I drive a truck. Used to drive a bus. Okay. So I thought what Mr. Cole had to say was what I think is a good idea. Okay? Thank you, Mr. This time.
Thank you. Any other cards?
No, sir.
All right, let me hear what the motion is.
Okay, the motion that I'll make is that we remain with the standards that we have.
I've got a motion from Member Cole, a second from Member Stokel. Roll call vote.
Member Cole?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Under protest, yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Passes, I guess that's a pass. Anyway, there's your advisement. City Manager.
On to new business, which is item 12A, city impact fees advisability. The city's impact fee structure was last updated in 2019. Staff is requesting approval to proceed with a comprehensive impact fee study, which will recommend an economically and legally supportable set of impact fees to offset the growth of related to police protection, fire protection, park and recreation, city hall, public works, water and sewer impacts due to growth. The impact fee study and plan will comply with the Florida Impact Fees Act, Florida Statute of 2023. If you approve this, staff will bring back to City Council a draft task order and the scope of work for City Council's consideration before we bid it.
I will interject first because I can do that. I think that, I think we've all talked about growth. We've all talked about infrastructure. We say that all the time, infrastructure, LID, all that stuff. We need our new businesses, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not trying to hinder or handicap any business, but I think that most of them would agree that we need to look at our impact fee and I don't use the word raising it, but bringing it up to snuff and bringing it up to the impact that they're having and kind of pay their share. And I think countywide, statewide, comparatively speaking, I think we're on the low side there. So I am very much in favor of an impact fee study and think we need to work on getting up to proper levels. Member Cole?
I had my light on, but I think you've said exactly what I would have said, that yes, we totally agree with the study to look at our impact fees and bring them up to the point that we will be able to support our infrastructure, fire and police, and those kinds of things. Very important.
Anybody else? A call card?
2 cards, Michael Myjack.
Oh, this is a bonus round.
I think the impact fee look-see is a very good thing. In fact, it's kind of the basis that I was thinking of trying to create an incentive program for doing LID and native plants. Specifically, the elements that deal with stormwater, potable water, and sanitary sewer. Those 3 impact our city with any new development. There's additional stormwater. There's additional elements in that stormwater, which we know, fertilizer, insecticides, herbicides. Those things create an impact to the environment, to our environment, and we're not assessing that. I'd like to use that impact and pay that back to the development that uses LID, and pay that back to the development that's using mostly native plants. So that when we have buildings going forward, we have a reason and a value with which to do that. And the way that we can manage that is with the impact fee. We can take the leftover where they choose, say, to put in non-native plants, they don't get the incentive. That incentive then comes back to the city, which feeds our urban forest plan. Or we could buy parks and park space to put up more trees. But we develop and create a mechanism which we recover part of our social capital that we have with the vistas and the views and the way we think of these historic places. Because quite frankly, these green spaces that we're talking about overdeveloping or developing are actually removing our environment from our space here. And that's a piece of Titusville. And it's diminishing and it's being eroded away. And we need to find a way to incorporate from that back into the city. And so I really want you guys to consider these impact fees so that we can come up with an equitable way of growing forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next card.
Stan Johnston.
Stan Johnston, registered professional engineer. I believe we do need to look into this issue, and with special regard with inadequate city review that we're having right now, that it doesn't have a review of stormwater. Like, for example, I told you about the book that I paid for and gave to community development. We're having trouble with surveying. We're having problems with a number of things in our city review. And that goes to this one paragraph at the bottom of this little sheet here. I'll read this one paragraph. And it has to do with the impact fees, because I'm asking for more for making your city review adequate, especially with engineering and surveying. So here it says, the question is how can city continue to approve the construction and preliminary plat of the project S&J Oaks, considering 1, encroachment survey overlaps witnessed by me and Vice Mayor Robinson. Number 2, independent findings by city employees Brad Parrish and Mark Jones that the right-of-way of Elizabeth Avenue is 53 foot wide as shown on snow survey. Rather, it is 50 foot wide as determined by deed from me, Stan Johnston City, in 1984. Number 3, failure to properly recognize Mockingbird Lane, street signs, etc. Number 4, failure to recognize the prescriptive rights of property owners to be at least a 20 foot wide two-way access as shown by the concrete pad that was poured. And number 5 was title policy avoided by errors, encroachments, and other of the survey. So I believe we do need our staff to look into these issues more, the engineering and surveying, because right now, as far as I can see, is that, and when I come here, is that I'm being disrespected, not just me, but my profession, engineering, and other professionals that practice engineering, because you guys are just breaking so many laws, violating so many laws. And you continue doing it. It's what I told you before, is it's dirty tricks. And so you need to get away from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards? Yes, sir. All right. What do we need to do here? We need a motion. All right, Member Nelson.
Move to approve,
City impact fee advisability.
right, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Got a motion. Go ahead and say that so I didn't say it. City impact fee advisability.
Motion to approve the city impact advisability
Fee
study.
advisability, there you go. And
Second.
I have a motion by Member Nelson, a second by Member Cole. Roll call vote.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Robinson?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Cole?
Advisability passes. City manager.
You on to petitions and requests?
You're done now, Stan. Petitions and requests from the public. Anybody who didn't speak, I think you're the only one left, and he's not going to. All right, mayor's report. Correct? Yeah. Thank you, Stan. Couple things. On Friday night, I went to the Night of Lights. Tim Tebow sponsors the Night of Lights. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's basically a nationwide prom for special needs people. And I will tell you that it was different for me this time, because I've been to it every year. It's the fourth year that they've had it here. Miss Coachman and Titusville High School's best buddies do a really good job of putting it together. We have been having it, I forgot the name of it, but it's a church next to Royal Oaks Rehab Center on Knox McRae. Anyway, kind of a small place. Well, this year, they went out to the old Knights of Columbus, which is now the Elks Club off of 405, much bigger. Well, next year, they're going to have to go somewhere else because they got too big there. So that was just a wonderful night, and I got to take my hat off to the Titusville High SGA and Best Buddies, and I will share pictures later if interested. But the students dressed up like superheroes, because the theme was everybody's a superhero. And I want to tell you, it was we had Spider-Man, Superman, Wonder Woman, everything. It was fantastic. The guests of honor loved it. And then Tim Tebow and his wife did a little talk, and they ended it with, because everybody had a crown or a tiara. I think that's what you call it, a little special thing. Yeah. And they announced that everybody was the king and the queen of prom, and they went nuts. Yeah. They went nuts. It was fantastic. So today, if you saw the early agenda, we were supposed to have Titusville High School on earlier for the presentation. We talked about a proclamation congratulating them on having the first 9-1 season at Titusville High School since 1967. And winning the first home playoff game since 1988. Very, very special year. And Coach Holmes, the coach, and I talked, and he kind of thought, as much as we wanted to be here, he said, they're sharing their track right now because Titusville High is getting the new track. So they're sharing the track with astronauts. So they go later. They go to practice later. So they couldn't have had too many people here because most of the team is on the track team. Coach Holmes is also a coach on the track team. So he said, can we do it here so more, the kids can be there? It was so cool. We got them out of class. We had every single player there, most every coach. Got a picture. I don't know who it did. I'd like to see who it is, but they had a photographer there, took a picture of handing them their certificate. Jasmine, and I believe mostly Jasmine, but the staff downstairs did a great job of doing a certificate for every single player, put it in a nice folder. It was just a very, very special time. And my hat's off to them. And like I told them, the most important thing is that they are a class act. They are respectful. They are yes sir, no sir. They are just outstanding young men, outstanding coaches. And the coaches are making a difference in those kids' lives. And they will remember that 9-1 season. I told them you'll come back in your 10th and your 20th anniversary. And it'll be a bigger deal then than it is now. So those are two really cool things that I did, and I'm very excited about that. And we'll go with Member Nelson.
Well, I went over and checked out the Schuler tent this afternoon.
Tell me again.
The Schuler tent.
Oh, okay, okay.
It seats 300 people. It has an absolutely beautiful stage, sound room.
They got something going on down there now, don't they?
Yeah, and I don't remember what it is, but they're getting ready to start a new play. So it's just beautiful.
Is it outdoor?
It's outdoors. It's a hard tent. I don't know if Scott's seen it. I'm sure
Yeah,
Brad's
this one's
seen it.
hurricane-proof.
Yeah, it's just beautiful.
What a difference.
Absolutely beautiful. And I walked out and it's like very professional, very first class. And I went, man, I think we've arrived. I mean, it's not the little playhouse there used to be, or the little theater, movie theater it was when we were kids. It's just, it's there.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Big deal.
It's a big deal. So did that. Rotary is adding 26 more trees to Sandpoint Park. And Kay St. Ange has helped. So when we were talking, I asked her how many trees they had planted. So by the time we finish R26, they will have planted 165 trees.
Wow.
Did you realize that?
No, I did not.
I did.
I've been down there every
By-
time they plant it, but I didn't get there just in time to plant one.
By the way, our trees are still alive. I went over to Sandpoint Park. We're alive. So that was really cool. And thinking about that, I don't know what it would take to plant trees along the bike path. Is that a possibility?
Sure could use shade.
It could use some
Yeah,
shade.
the quick answer is it depends.
Okay, so what does it depend on?
It's actually, FDOT actually owns the trail itself. We maintain it. So we'd have to work with them in order to add any amenities to it.
I would be interested in at least seeing what they would say.
Yeah, I
Now,
think
as
so.
a frequent rider of the trails,
Yeah,
and
especially,
there's people that also give me comments on it, we have a lot of shade on our trails.
do we?
We do.
Okay,
And specifically on north of Mims area, when you get into the well fields and north,
yeah.
it's very, very pleasant to ride up there.
I was thinking more from Garden Street to 46.
Goes really quick.
When it's 97 out?
It really does. That's only about a 4-mile stretch,
Those
and
days.
for us, it
Okay.
goes very quick.
Okay. So as I was looking at the trees, I was like,
Yeah.
boy, it'd be nice to have some shade trees up there. But Sandpoint, I think will
It'll be real
have
shady before you know it.
50 more trees in there.
And if you
Yeah.
also, I was just thinking, the area around Dairy Road, as you pick up right after
Yeah.
Temple Baptist, that's all shaded. And-
Right.
And
Yeah.
then you get back up into the golf course area, once you get into Mims area.
Okay,
There's one big field that's open, but again, that goes pretty quick, and then it is fairly shaded. The comments I get from folks, even in the summertime, is we like the way,
I take your word for it when it gets to heat index of 108.
and the
I don't go
second
out.
piece, having almost been hit by a couple cars that
Yeah.
crossed the trail, we do like visibility, the more visibility that we can have as that particular area that you're talking about does have quite a few
Okay.
crossings. And I would rather be able to see, I saw the driver that almost hit me, and we made eye contact, so I would like
Okay.
to have that.
I take your word for it. Thanks.
Member Cole.
I had the opportunity today to give a Tuskegee Airman briefing, presentation that I have to the Daughters of American Revolution.
That's right.
And they had it at the Warburg Museum. Well, I have a interesting story about the Daughters of American Revolution. In 1963, when I graduated from high school, I received a certificate and a check for $100 from the Daughters of American Revolution. So I shared that with them today, and there are a lot of commonalities I have, so I can talk from personal experience with the Tuskegee Airmen because I had an uncle that was a Tuskegee Airman. 3 of my ROTC instructors while at Tuskegee were original Tuskegee Airmen. I was commissioned by Chappie James, who was our first 4-star black general in the Air Force. And it was just a very pleasurable evening that I had there. And the other thing, and Scott, I don't want you to say anything about this, the Chief Alfred Anderson, who was the main flight instructor for the Tuskegee Airmen, was the individual that took Eleanor Roosevelt up to prove to her that blacks could fly. Chief Alfred Anderson taught me how to fly when he was still a instructor for the ROTC flight instruction program at Tuskegee. And needless to say, I did not realize what history he had. I was able to talk to my uncle about the Tuskegee Airmen, and I was able to talk to my ROTC instructors and garnered a lot of information from them. But Chief Alfred Anderson got his pilot's license in 1929. He was among the first men to receive, black men to get a pilot's license. He was an amazing, amazing gentleman. So it was a pleasure to be able to give that. And I'm saying this now because if anybody would like me to give that presentation, I'm more than willing to do it. So they know how to get in contact with me.
That's outstanding.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, just remember to tell him, Herman, that the first black to receive a pilot license was a female.
I didn't say he was the first black. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact.
Yeah. All right. I don't have anything related to that, but they're very good, Herman. Yeah. Huh?
Coast Guard. Who lets the Coast Guard in the room?
Herman, you're doing so well.
The only thing that I did, Sarah, Jolene, the Vice Mayor, we went to the EDC celebration, breaking out their big new pen, and I just say it was a big new pen. Interesting looking fella over the last time. And trip to Tallahassee was very, very good. I don't like the Tallahassee traffic. I don't like big city traffic, and especially big city with small streets.
Yeah.
Very small street, but it was very educational. I learned a lot. I think it's a very valuable thing that is done. But I think that it may have been too late to make a difference. But that's just my thoughts on it. I went to the CTPO meeting, Space Coast Transportation Organization, and that was good. A lot of good things. Titusville and the 405 was brought up during the process, and they're looking for that, and we need to work harder to get some more funding for that. Went to the MPO over in Orlando. The state are trying to do away with the MPOs or change them as they go. And the MPO is the collection of all of the TPOs that are in your district. So that's
it's a big meeting.
yeah. That and again, I want to going to Tallahassee for the first time. You need people you can ask questions to, because they get sometimes busy and run off and leave the newbies. But we catch up if you really want to catch up, and it was good. And we went to the League of Cities last night, and I was at the vice president of the local, brief you on some of the things that we did.
Did you get to sit at the big table?
Who, me? I'm still in the same
Some things
spot.
never change. Well, I do come visit, and I will.
Please,
Save me a seat. Remember Stokel?
Okay,
But
So-
she did speak this time. She was friendly.
Oh, she spoke?
She waved.
oh my gosh,
must be 'cause
stop,
I'm
that
not.
is not true. That is not, stop it. I was very nice, thank you.
She was. She was very nice.
Vice Mayor brought up a good point when going to Tallahassee, and our guest speaker, Greg Ross, at last night's dinner kind of spoke to this, and he's our current Florida League of Cities president. The importance of making sure that we are meeting with our representatives and senators when they're not in session. And I've seen that happen and be beneficial throughout the years. So when we get up there, and Tallahassee is crazy, once we're there, we have a schedule of who to meet with, and because they are in committees, sometimes that changes. Sometimes we had to split off our groups to kind of divide and conquer. But the real, in my opinion, just from doing this for several years, it really starts with trying to develop a relationship with them prior. So that is very beneficial, because once you get up there, you want to make sure that you're there during committee weeks before things would be heard in the separate committees, because sometimes it doesn't matter if you have a good bill or a bad bill. It depends on whether or not it makes it through all three committees and then gets to the floor of both the House and Senate. So in regard to that, some of the bills that we're watching right now, some of them have made it all the way through House and have not even gone through one committee in the Senate side. So that means probably won't pass. So you have to have it go through both sides. And that's where a lot of the work comes into play, is who's on that committee. So some of the people that we met with, and I appreciated this about one of the reps, said, let me see which of these I'm actually going to hear, because you could be wasting your time if you're meeting with somebody and they're not even going to hear the bills that you're talking about. The flip side of that, it could be beneficial if they have a relationship with somebody that's the chair of that committee. So there is a lot of strategic planning when it comes to this. In terms of the actual bills that are going through, I think one of them that will probably pass is that sovereign immunity that was mentioned before. So the caps right now haven't been raised in over 10 years. So I anticipate that one. I mean, it is what it is. I kind of see both sides. So I felt like that one probably will go through. I think really where it will hurt people are the smaller cities, personally. One update that we got yesterday, which I think is very beneficial for us, is in regard to Form 6. That one passed last year, but City of Cocoa is wanting to sponsor a session for all electeds. So March 18th in Cocoa from 6 to 8, they're bringing in somebody to go over Form 6. So again, March 18th from 6 to 8. Also, in terms of that, and I don't think that we should kind of go down this path, we did have somebody speak at our board meeting that there are, I think, 19 cities now that have joined a lawsuit, and our city attorney mentioned this before, against Form 6 under, I think their standing is constitutional provision, right to privacy. I have concerns personally that I don't think that we should join as a city, because one, I feel like if we had any standing, the state would have already fought that standing, saying, well, we're doing it right now, so I don't know how we could actually have standing. And two, because it's something we have to file individually, I don't know how good it will look if we're using funds to join the lawsuit. It would cost $10,000 as a city to do that, how that would look, since it's an individual thing that we have to do, and now we're saying as a city we want to fight it. So there are 19 cities that have joined it so far, and then in
Let
addition
me
to
interject
that.
it. Heard on the TV news yesterday, I guess Melbourne joined.
Yep, probably.
So that Melbourne voted to
And
move forward.
that was one of the attorneys that spoke to us yesterday. So I will tell you from just who I've spoken to, there are people on both sides that are very passionate about their stance. So it is something that we could discuss, or you can talk to some of the other council members to see if you see a different view of it. That's just from who I've talked to so far, kind of my view on it. What else? It was the largest legislative action days we've had in Tallahassee. So I think that is, I think the biggest thing is, even though they're pushing back a lot on preemption and like our home rule, I do feel like the more that we are present and we're building relationships, it really does make a difference. It's just whether or not it will be enough of a difference is what I'm seeing. Another thing that was mentioned while we were in Tallahassee at the board meeting, the Florida League of Cities is really trying to revamp what they're doing and how they can best serve us. So there will be a member survey that will be emailed to all of you on just the services they provide. And I think it would be beneficial if we all fill it out because we're all involved at different levels. So I think it would be good to hear from all of us to see kind of what resources they can provide. Because one of the things they're working on is to have a new toolkit for newly elected officials. And I think that's great because we get our handbook and our orientation, but I think they're trying to revamp and try to educate more at the state level so a newly elected official feels confident going into the role. Because I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but it took a while to really get a handle on everything that we do and what we're in charge of and what we're not. And the last thing that I will touch on is, I didn't share this with you guys before because I really didn't know what to expect, but I got to participate in something really cool. It was called Local Government 2030, and it was an initiative started last year, a national initiative, and it was just kind of like a think tank where somebody had an idea to gather and recruit a bunch of different people together to look at solving some grand challenges for local government. So last year when they met, it was mostly young practitioners, so under 40, people that work in local government to try to address some challenges that local government faces. So they met all last year. They also invited partners to kind of help sponsor different sponsors within local government that would want to be a part of it. So this year they decided to invite, I think there were 12 of us, young elected officials from across the nation. I was the only one from Florida. And we came together and they had already started 3 different initiatives. One was related to communication and how to best engage citizens as things have changed, especially in terms of technology, engagement, getting them to participate. One was on promised pathways and integrating justice impact individuals into public service and how to get them to potentially want to work in public service. And then one I was a part of was grow a resilient workforce on how to recruit, retain, and develop. And I think that one was really important as we're thinking about public service. Even today we had an agenda item that talked about hiring bonuses. And as we think about individuals potentially retiring, getting older, sorry. But thinking about how do we recruit and retain the younger generation. And so it was really exciting to be a part of something like that, especially to hear from electeds and practitioners from outside of Florida and ways that they may approach things. I just had never participated in something like that, and it was really cool. So I plan to stay involved with that group as well as they try to refine some initiatives and come up with different ways to address some of these problems and challenges that local government faces. I think that's all I have.
City Manager.
Have one action item, and it's, if you would get your calendars ready, I need a date to do the results of the citizen survey, which is currently underway. The survey will be returned in a report format on April 5th. And we'll have a special meeting with senior staff and council to review the survey results and consider input changes to your strategic plan. The meeting will be facilitated by Kristen Bakke. You're familiar with her from Lead Brevard. And the primary dates that staff's recommending is 30 April at 5. The second date is 2 May at 5. And the third possible date would be the 7th of May at 5.
And those are what days of the week? All of them the same?
Tuesday, Thursday, and then Tuesday.
They're basically off weeks from city council meetings, except we threw one Thursday in just in case you wanted a Tuesday off.
Okay. I'm good with any of those.
Me too.
Any Thursday, Tuesday.
I know I can't do the 2nd.
Okay.
And the 7th is possible, but I may not be all here.
Do you want to do the 30th?
I'd rather do the 30th.
Let's do the 30th.
I think you get into May, I think May 7th might even be senior awards night
Yep.
at Titusville High School.
Okay, so we'll do the workshop on the 30th of May at 5 PM.
30th of April?
I'm sorry, April. I apologize.
No worries. What are we calling this?
This is similar to what you'd done in the past. You had your Saturday morning, Ms. Bakke would come back with the results from that. So this year, we're doing.
Survey summary. I'm trying to figure out what to put this.
Correct.
Survey review, thank you. Review results. And that's 5 PM.
5 PM on the 30th, yes, sir.
Okay.
2 information items. The city, again, was designated as a Tree City USA. Recognition letter is in there. And staff's also providing an update on the inactive status of the North Brevard County Public Library District. And finally, we're about 43 days into the new year, and Officer Cruz wanted me to pass along to council that he is still working out.
Work out and still gain weight.
City Attorney.
Yes,
It's the
Mayor.
best.
I have one item that we received that, too late to include in the agenda, but I wanted to bring it up. And if you recall, we participated in several settlements regarding the opioid cases.
Right, right.
Yeah, one of those entities was ENDO, E-N-D-O. And they're filing a Chapter 11 bankruptcy to restructure their debt. And as one of the claimants that participated under the settlement, we have a right to file an objection to their bankruptcy plans if you're so inclined. Those would have to be filed by February 22nd. According to the documentation we received, the opioid claimant committee representing claimants has recommended not to object to the plan. I understand that Brevard County will be taking no objection on objecting to the plan. So I just want to let you know the option is there if you decide you want to object to their bankruptcy plan. But otherwise, I do not intend to do that.
Okay.
Now, if I do hear from the Attorney General's office as far as a strong
Well, let us
opinion,
know.
I will bring that back to you if it requires special meeting. But I've reached out to them, and they haven't provided any indication that they would suggest we object.
Your button, but no, it's not pushed. Right, okay. Anything else? Anybody else? With that, meeting adjourned.